Hello, everyone, and welcome to Just Unsecure, another edition. And today we're going to be talking about the general news of what's happening right now. And our topic for today is, you got it right, how to conduct security audit within the organization. So stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe. So you'll be able to just get everything that happens with us when we release it. You'll be the first to know about all our new editions. Welcome back, everyone. Like I said, this is Just Unsecure, your favorite old Babs, and over there. And we're just two security enthusiasts and evangelists talking about cybersecurity and what we love about it. So today's our topic, like I told everyone, is how to conduct security audit within your organization. But before we go ahead, I'm just going to tell you about some interesting things that happened in the world of cybersecurity. So the first one is, let me say, Google and Microsoft have decided to, put their money where their mouth is, should I say, and are going to be putting some extra 30 billion in cybersecurity advancement in the next 5 years. So if you're thinking of jumping into the cybersecurity career space, I think it's a good time. If Microsoft and Google are doing that, you know what's going to happen next.
That's a lot of money.
Any other news you want to share that is important in the month of August?
In the month of August, that meeting that you mentioned was with Biden, and they're saying, yeah, guess what? This is what we're going to commit into. And part of this is a lot of that is actually on training. So they are committed to almost like 100,000 new workforce into cybersecurity. This is the time I wish they can extend this all over the world, which I believe that's what Microsoft is going to do, especially.
Yes.
Microsoft is going to extend it beyond America. And I really hope that at this time, they're going to empower a lot of Africans, especially in the continent itself, not Africans in diaspora. So I'll really be following that up. And if I can champion it, I'd love to. I'd love to have that conversation with Microsoft that we need capacity and improvement in Africa, especially when it comes to security.
Wow. Yep. Fingers crossed. Hopefully that gets across. But I want to jump the gun quick. Another area we saw is I don't think it's a new way of attack, but it kind of made the headlines where malicious people are trying to get employees or people within organization to kind of release ransomware within the network. The popular one that went all over the news was where they were trying to use a ransomware known as Denoware, aka Black Kingdom, aka Demon. It's kind of like, take it within a USB, plug it in, install and execute, and it takes over the network, shuts the network down. And it was one of the significant exploits for Microsoft Exchange, if I remember. But this caught wave because this is someone promising an employee to deploy it within the network and would be paid in ransomware close to $1 million was what was promising the employee. So
that's a new strategy. That's a new strategy in which you want to use. Of course, Babs, that internal defense has been a lot weak because of the people. Now you're taking it to the next level to say you can compromise from the internal environment, and I'm going to give you some compensation on it. That's serious. But based on what Babs has just mentioned, the DemonWare, which is a CVE 2021-27065. I think you should look at it. That was announced back in March. Make sure if you have not closed, if you have not patched your exchange, do that immediately.
Beautiful. And I think the last one we'll talk about is, the most popular one. Everybody at the I'm going to say bad, sad news where T-Mobile got hacked. Well, 50 million subscriber data was hacked. I'm sure they'll be getting lots of fines for that. But again, it's just letting people know, you need to take security seriously, you need to continuously monitor and continuously evolve your strategy of ensuring that your environment is secure.
Especially in the telecom environment, because this is related. If you're managing telecom environment in Africa, you need to relook at what was done right and what was done wrong with TMobile. The level of data that was lost was significant. That only includes both postpaid and prepaid customers. And you can imagine the identity. Identity theft is the big thing, even anyway. And this is why we are bringing this up also to Africa, because we know identity theft things is critical. In some countries right now, you now have their identity matched, their national identity matched with their telecom data now. Usually before it doesn't happen in Africa, but that is common in the US, right? Where you have a social security number mapped with everything. But in Africa, this is now growing. You have your identity, then your IMSI, which is your SIM card detail and all of that, and phone number was also compromised. So addresses, emails, that's a lot of data.
And do you know the crazy thing about it? It's actually a 21-year-old boy, Virginia native living in Turkey, that actually is behind the hack.
The guy
you don't need to be a cyber gang or something like that. It's just a young boy, that did this hack. So again, it just to all the professionals out there, just continuous monitoring, defense in depth, and we all have to keep our game hat on. Anyway, want to say anything?
Not to spite T-Mobile, the guy was actually joking during the week that T-Mobile security is whack.
Wow. Well,
he was actually boasting, but anyways.
Wow.
Let's see how that goes.
That's why they need professionals.
I agree with you completely.
I don't know if I know some professionals there, so it might be just a weak link in everything. Like I said, you're only as strong as your weakest link, so you have to ensure every part of your environment is secure. Anyway, we won't dwell too much on that. I think we'll go to the hot topic of today, and the hot topic is how to conduct a security audit within the organization. But before I go through that, maybe, Yemi, what would you consider security audit?
Yeah, it's just as we're talking about security audit. It's just a validation. First of all, that's a validation that you are doing the right thing as regards security. Why you are getting an auditor to come and do it is just like you are getting a third opinion, a second opinion, as the case may be. If you have internal audit, that's a second opinion. Third opinion is find someone else to say, guess what? Come and attest to what I'm doing right or what I'm doing wrong. Don't see audit as a pothole for you, because many of us are scared about it. We dodge away from audit. Whenever we hear audit, it's like, oh, audit. No, but they're actually a good way to win it. Look at audit in a good light to see how that can improve your current IT security.
Yeah, and that's what we're here to let everyone know, like some simple steps you just need to take. But for me, maybe I'll ask my own self question: Why do we need security audit? Like I said, if you're using the internet or you have an IT infrastructure, it's always advised to ensure you do a security audit for your environment. You never know what holds your living open for an hacker. You might not be vulnerable today, and tomorrow might be your day. So it's better to do an audit once in a while to ensure that you're working in a very secure environment. So like O was saying, this is we're going to go through what steps or what steps you need to conduct. So I think we have 10 steps or magically 10 steps, but we'll go through everything and let you all know. So you want to do the honors? Let's roll.
Absolutely. So this is not like a scripted stuff. Is what we have done. what we have practiced. So we're not trying to tell you what someone just told us. It's just what we have practiced. We've seen how it works, and we've tested it over and over again in different environments. And that is why we're advising you on how to do it successfully. So number one, of course, Babs, scope. Yeah. Scope and gap analysis. Especially, you have to choose which of the audit standards you want to go for. If it's just an internal audit, you need to know what it entails. If it's GDPR, if it's PCIDSS, ISO standard, or whatever it is, even if it's NIST framework that you want to get a little bit of audit against, you need to get that first and see what is the scope, what are the systems that will be involved, and all of that. And then you can, after that choice, you know what to do. It's gap analysis. Yeah. How are you far from closing that?
After the scope, like you've rightfully said, is, doing your gap analysis. So the gap analysis kind of lets you know what area you are not meeting or you're not at par with in terms of any standards or any benchmark or framework you are hoping to abide by. Yeah. And most of the time, it's a way of going through not necessarily going in detail, but going through the controls and seeing where you might actually have places you need to do better in. And one of the areas or one of the things most people find out, especially when they're doing the gap analysis, is ensuring they have some form of asset inventory in place. So that would be like your second step, I would say. So you'd need to actually have a detailed IT asset inventory in place. This allows you know everything within your network. And if you watch some of our other videos, we mentioned it, like you can only protect what you know.
Absolutely.
If you don't know, you can't protect it. So asset inventory is by far the most detailed thing you need to know within your infrastructure. Know what you manage.
Yes, and that is based on your scope as well. Don't go ahead and gather all the asset that is not in your scope, especially in the scope of the audit. You just wear yourself thin. You spread wide, thin, and you will not meet any. So you have to be consistent with your scope.
And like we said, if you remember all the IT infrastructure you're going to take account for, like Owo said, must be in scope. If it's not in scope, try not to bring it in scope, because it doesn't make any sense doing a security audit if that system is not part of what is going to be in scope of the audit. And not dwelling on that, moving forward, once you've done all that, the main thing is to do a risk assessment, which overall is like doing a risk assessment framework. Most people use the 853 by NIST. However, I would say if you have your policies or you have a way of identifying your risk, then by all means use that process. But it's always good to use the best practice out there, which most people use 853, which sometimes, my own personal opinion, it's not an easy framework to use if you are just starting off in security. It's kind of hard to, for a new security person, it's kind of hard to get your head around. So, but I would always say that if you have your internal risk, and as long as it follows some form of methodology and you're able to identify, quantify, and understand the risk that you're bringing out, then yes, by all means follow that. Because even when the auditor comes, you have to show him or her that there's a thought process on how you identify and mitigate risk. That is the actual aim.
In fact, you've touched a very important part of risk assessment. Why Babs have suggested, and I support him completely on the NIST 800 series, it's just because, Babs, in the industry right now, if you are going to do the major compliance to ISO standard and all of that, that is the best you can use now, at least based on our own experience. Someone else can say something else exists, but I don't see just yet. So what he has mentioned about choosing your own risk assessment as well might be because of your specific environment. And you have to explain that to the auditor. And don't forget, at the back of your mind, just always remember, I am actually trying to protect real life and real system. Not like I'm just going to tick box. Why most people fail is just because you're trying to tick a box. Try to see like what I'm really think that's important to the business. What are the really things that will create problem to the business? And that's what you should focus on. So when you have done that, the next thing is, after your risk, close the gaps. I think that is explanatory by itself. Look at the risk and see how you can mitigate it, basically. Your risk appetite, also your policy might talk about high, medium, low, and see which one the organization wants to accept. So once you have formed that baseline on the level in which the organization is able to accept a particular risk, don't forget again, your risk is called a risk because it's trying to protect the business from losing money. So when the business accepts it, they accept a particular baseline. And that is what would dictate how long you're going to do to close the gaps.
So that once you have your gaps identified, try to close them and also try to put some kind of severity to them. And that's where the risk rating comes in. You know, the higher the risk, the more you are willing to put in, the more you're willing to put some more finances into it if you need to close it. For example, I remember back in the days when I used to do mine, that was when we used to do vulnerabilities based on whatever we got from the sets. So we put it in an Excel sheet. But later on, we have the tools that came out, Nessus and Qualys. And so, hey, we don't need to do Excel sheets anymore, you know, but this gave you an opportunity to, like, you know, if you to invest in those kind of tools to do it. So if you have gaps like that and you have tools that need, you'll be able to, you know, put your foot forward on why you need those kind of things. I think the next thing is a safe bet to always do security audit is always look at previous audits. Look at what was the finding from previous audits. You don't want a scenario where previous audits have things open.
Yeah.
And they are still open in the new audit, and they're still open in the new audit, which means nobody's actually looking at closing findings. Or the worst case scenario is things you've closed and are now being opened in a new audit. Then that means the mitigation or the reason why you close it hasn't been taken into consideration, meaning that there's a process gap of what is being, how things are supposed to be closed and kept closed. Remember, in every risk, there's mitigation, avoidance, transference, but you have to have all the steps in place, but it means you still need to redo and recheck your risk appetite, should I say. So finding out from your previous audit what was open is always a good way to start off before you actually engage like a proper, like a third party auditor. Always go through your internal audit to find out what they picked up.
That's fantastic. I think there are two things I'm going to club together, which I believe probably it most likely goes hand in hand. One thing is looking at your IT policies and procedures and standard operating procedures as well. You need to quickly look at that because your auditor will not be coming in to audit what has not been documented. In fact, the first thing they're going to do is to look at your policy. So you can do so many things, but you might not be meeting what you have written in your policies and procedures. That means your culture, your practice, and everything. Make sure you're able to do that. And at the same time, perform what we call self-assessment with that. So that means you have your policy, you're now doing self-assessment towards your policies. You say, guess what? Yeah, I'm complying to my policy here, or I'm falling behind in my policy here. My policy says disable user after they are not active 30 days, after they are inactive for 30 days. And already there's a lot of those users in your account 90 days after. Definitely you're not following your policy. So make sure you do your self-assessment, audit yourself, so to say, before anybody else will come around to audit you.
Yeah, and I think for that, I would say that is where you tend to get internal audit involved. So if you have the resources to have internal audit, all well and good, because it kind of helps you to ascertain where you are prior to getting actual auditor in place to come and a third party to come and do yours. So everything we've talked about is what you need to do internally to ensure that you are ready for an actual security audit within your organization. If everything you've done, you deem yourself fit and ready to go, that is when we'll say, okay, go ahead, schedule a test, schedule audit for your organization, get a confirmed date from the auditor, tell the auditor, yep. We'll normally say 6 months after when you're ready. Sometimes it's good to go a year, but from 6 months to a year, you can schedule it, say, okay, this is when I want to do my audit within the organization. And the one thing I would always tell people, and this is a good thing to note, whenever you schedule your audit, always try and inform the auditor to also provide you with a list of documents and procedures they might likely check when they are coming to audit you. Most third-party auditors will provide a couple of weeks or months before they actually come for the audit. Some nice one might provide you regardless because they know they are they are coming. But also, if you use any of the frameworks that we stated up, they have the already basic things that
assessment, yes,
look for. So that's one area I would say, always ensure you get documentation from the auditors.
Spot on. In addition to what Babs have talked about, when you look at your audit timelines, so for some organizations, you don't have control over it. You probably have already cast in concrete quarterly audit or biannual audit or a year audit. The only thing you're expecting is for the auditor to send you an email to say, yes, we'll be coming in 2 weeks from now. Definitely. And if you're an ISO, PCIDSS certified organization as well, maybe you're just resuming in there, you don't have that experience. Now you know that for some, they're going to come 1 year after, especially for ISO. But for PCIDSS, it varies. The maximum I've seen for PCIDSS is biannual, every 6 months. So for some of the organizations who are running a lot of maybe level 1 kind of volume of transaction, about 6 million thereabout, definitely you're expecting that to be much more frequent.
And for ISO as well, I would say I've worked in organizations or I've been in organizations where they add theirs twice as well. Again, I think for ISO, it depends on your scope. If your scope is very wide and it's not something an auditor can come and review within 4 or 5 days like they normally do, then obviously they might recommend that you do another review session before the end of the year. So again, it all depends on the scope and the framework that you're going to. The only thing I always advise people is ensure there are no critical issues being found. Like whatever your policy states, that is what you should be doing. Whatever if your policy states you're backing up twice a year, you back up twice a year. If you're backing up more, beautiful. But whatever your policy states cannot be below the policies. So that's just one thing most people should also take into consideration. And depending on the auditor, Some auditor might be nasty, but just do your best, ensure you fulfill all requirements, and that's it. I don't.
If you listen to our podcast, I think a week or 2 weeks ago, you also find some of the things that you can do to configure your system properly, because beyond your paper and all of that, the auditor will be looking at your configurations. So any auditor that is not looking at your configurations is just looking at your paper, and that's why you have to do things that you promised you were going to do when you were writing your policy. But how to configure that, you can also take other framework or standard or benchmark like CIS, and if it's cloud, like CCM. So you can do that, so that at least you know that you can show the auditor, like, this is how I configured my system, this is how I have my system basis. And on the day of the audit, Tunde, how do you prepare for the day of the audit? The very day.
Be prepared for anything, as in different audits. They're different. I've been in so many audits, so everyone is different, because every person, it might be a case that the auditor didn't wake up well and wants to take it out on you. So, or you might like an auditor that just wants to understand the system and ensure that you're doing your job right. So it's just be prepared for anything, and going with your best. And as long as you know you've done everything according to the controls and done over and beyond what is required, then you should be safe. If you're mediocre, you will feel threatened and worried. But if you're a professional, or you want to be a professional, you do your best and go through all the controls in detail, you shouldn't have any problem. That's my own view.
Thank you. And Babs, remember what we always do? We have evidence box or folder.
Yeah. Always have your folder. Yeah. It makes. There's one rule. I want to give people just one rule. If you make the life of the auditor easy, it will make your life easy as well. So I mean, you have everything documented. You have the evidence documented. If he wants to see this, it's easy for him to see. But once you start playing games, then he's going to play games with you as well. So
he's going to tell you,
life easy, or
go ahead and show me again. Go ahead and show me again. So
once he sees everything is okay, documented right, easy for him to, say he wants to see this, the folder is right there, or whether it's on your laptop or it's easy for him to see that everything has been done, documented with excellence, and you shouldn't have any problem.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah. For some auditors that we probably need to walk your floor. When I say walk your floor, probably go to your data center or go to your SOC or your NOC. You need to inform and schedule all your stakeholders, your IT teams, your administrator. They need to be prepared for the audit. So because they are the one doing it. Remember, you are the security professional. You are not actually the one doing it. So they need to be able to get their act right. If they don't know, if you need to train them, you need to train them on the policy. They need to know it on how to protect the system, on the policy and the procedure. Mm-hmm. They need to know it like the back of their hand, because some auditors, Babs, they will go to the floor. Beyond whatever you've shown them, they will go to the floor and said, please. Then you stand behind them and they tell the guys, log in, show me. So you need to do that. I just thought we should add that.
Yeah, and maybe one last thing again is ensure by all means, after the audit, you talk to the auditor and agree on the results and the findings prior to going to the closeout meeting with management. Don't be caught unaware or surprised about what the auditor is going to say in management meeting. That is no. You definitely do not want to do that. You need to sit down and say, okay, what's your conclusion? What have you found? What do you agree or disagree? But you must be aware of what's in place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've talked about many people are surprised. They're probably hearing the same results that the management is, and the management is looking at you. How can I defend this in the board meeting? That man, you set up yourself. Apart from the disgrace, it also shows like you are not prepared enough. So create a relationship with your auditor, so to say, professional relationship. Understand both of you agree, because sometimes it's a human being. You must probably have missed something that you have documented, and you quickly need to correct it. And some auditor will also ask you to respond. So make sure you respond to that query. Don't leave it fly. So that even when he's presenting it to the management, it can say, yes, this is your response to it. So, and clear plan for your management. So don't sit dumb in that meeting.
That's it. That's number one. Never going to management without knowing. I think that's really it. Maybe we should just recap. So we've talked about ensuring you do your scope and gap.
Yeah.
Ensuring you have your assets inventory, IT assets inventory in place. Always ensure it's within the scope.
Do your risk assessment.
Yeah. Risk assessment.
Close the gaps.
Then
IT policies.
Previous audit. Find out from the previous audit what is done.
Yeah. Then make sure you map to your IT policies and procedure. Don't just try to close gaps based on your head knowledge. Make sure you're actually following your procedure, your IT policies to the letter.
Self-assessment. Do a self-assessment of yourself. Get your internal auditor if your resources allow you, but do a self-assessment for yourself to ensure you are comfortable with going ahead on doing getting a third party in to do the audit.
Yeah. When you are sure, schedule your tests.
And once you schedule your test, always ask the auditor to give you a list of documents or checklist of what will be required from you.
Absolutely. Then after then, make sure again that you prepare for anything on the day of the audit. Get your box ready, get your folder ready, get your IT professionals, your IT operation team ready.
Yeah. And last but not least, I know that's 10. Number one, the 11th tip is ensure you have that meeting before the auditor presents to management. Know your results.
The closeout meeting before the closeout meeting.
Exactly. And that's it. That's our top 10 plus an extra one. I'll say top 11 steps. So, and that's it from us. If you like more of this, let us know. If you want to contact us, you can contact us at juteam@justunsecure.com.
Yeah.
You can follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and any social media outlets there. And our podcast channel as well.
Yes, you can Apple Podcast. You can also do it on Buzzsprout and all of that. Yeah, you can.
Okay, so thank you all. I don't have any much more to say, and see you next time on justunsecure.com.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Please.